Friends, how are you doing? This market is about to open up here, and this is it. This is really like the next, 3 weeks here. Two really, but three, we'll just push it here. But of earnings, we are about to go into ultimate earnings season here, and this is where things are really going to get interesting. Now, two with this week, at Friday here at 8 a.m., we're going to have the CIP inflation report. Now, we'll see how good, how bad, how middle ground it is, how the market reacts to it. But the market, it's already going to be Friday. The market probably will have done its, best and good at that, best and bad at that point. We'll see though, if this comes out just neutral, we may get another, one last push here at Friday, but it's still early in the market here, and we're about to see what these quarterlies do, what they really project out here for what's coming. Obviously, too, I just, if you haven't heard me say this, I think it's so important right now. But Tom Lee literally just said, like, hey, they asked him, do you still think you're going to get this 7,000 point S&P 500 range? He doubled down and said, actually, I think 7,000 points is the bare minimum of what we're going to get. I think we're going to get over 7,000 points. That is quite the thing to say right now, too. And, if these earnings really show more push here, we undoubtedly are going to see another run here with what we've already had. This market is about to go, just to places we haven't seen again. This is wild time to be an investor. Friends, I hope you're well. Let's talk about SoFi. We're about 7 days away. We're 7 days away from SoFi reporting its earnings here, Q3, and more than likely these will once again be the biggest and best quarterlies the company has pushed out. There's many different elements we're going to see with SoFi here, and SoFi being a bank stock, there's different things we look at when it does come out with its earnings. We look at obviously what was revenue, how much was revenue over what it was supposed to be. This is a very special. If you're just becoming an investor with SoFi, this is a very special time because SoFi is but on the edge, whatever you would say here, of hitting $1 billion quarterly. More than likely, this is going to at least, at the worst, be this third quarterly here will produce SoFi in this $900 million range of quarterly, which will get them closer to that $1 billion quarterly range. But obviously, by the end of this year, we'll push them more into $1 billion revenue range. So this is going to be the biggest and best year SoFi has ever had financially as a company. SoFi is back up in this $28 zone. It is trying to get back to $30. And, this is definitely, if there was a moment, this is the moment this week. And next week, obviously, is the big week. This week with earnings today, we're going to see Netflix, a lot of other big companies. Tomorrow, we've got today, with the market opening up here, we're going to see Netflix release earnings, a lot of other big companies. Tomorrow, we've got Tesla, a lot of other big companies. And next week, too, next week is like just a mixture of crazy big companies, too. SoFi here, like I was saying about SoFi, what is so unique about SoFi being a bank, that when their quarterlies are released, we obviously look at revenue. But the other thing, too, that's very interesting, and it's almost like an investment of the company. And this is for you as an investor. It's an investment. It's a weird thing because look at it this way: when the earnings come out, good, great. We want them to be big and spectacular. Obviously, money is what makes companies grow. But two, with SoFi being a bank, it's how many new customers did they get? How many new accounts did they get? That is really what is a huge driving force right now with SoFi. Obviously, they got great technology. They've got a great brand. They're pushing out, spending money in the right places. But two, they're going after the right people, and the right people are finding them. So, SoFi being this young bank, it's attracting young people. And I've said this time and time again, but it's so important because you really got to think about it as an investor. It's an investor's investment. Does that make sense? It's an investor's investment. I trademarked that. I made it up. That's mine. But when you're buying SoFi, you are investing in this company to do better. But with SoFi, when people open accounts with them, that's an investment for them as a company, because young people, anybody in general, but especially young people, they're going to need things in the future. They're going to need credit cards. They're going to need savings accounts. They're going to need loans, car loans, personal loans, bank loans, house loans, credit loans of all sorts and kinds of things. And two, you can start an account with SoFi, buying stocks. And two, crypto's going, they're pushing, SoFi is pushing more into crypto. So that is a big thing that I think we're going to see a lot more of next year when that gets more developed. So, I mean, SoFi is such just a unique, beautiful opportunity in front of people that you just want to shake people and be like, look at what's going on over here. I mean, this is it. I've said this time and time again, but SoFi is definitely, people know that I have, obviously I don't tell people, but people find out, that I have YouTube channels, and I love to talk stocks. I'm an investor. I love the market. I'm obsessed with it. But anytime I go anywhere and there's always a new person or something, or the crazy uncle, there's always somebody that comes up to me and they're like, if I had a little bit of ching in my pocket, where would I put it right now? What would you do? What would you do? What's the right thing right now? And of course, there's always the conversation followed by economics and, all this, and it goes into political conversation on there. But somebody, people are always want to know, where would you put some of that right now? If you had this X amount of money. SoFi is one of those stocks I've talked about for years. Thank God, and it's done well, because I've been telling people about SoFi for 2-3 years now, and thank God it's finally starting to pay off for those people, because I can't tell you how many of those people were coming up to me like, you sure about this? You sure about that? So I've had a lot of those conversations too, but finally, I think if you've been in SoFi for a while, you just knew this was gonna work. This was a company that was just the stock. The company was waiting for the right excuse, the right moment, and finally you're starting to see that with SoFi, where it's getting the right attention right now. So SoFi, I do believe even 6 months from now, this chart could look shockingly different to a lot of us. Okay, it could look shockingly different. There's going to be a moment here where SoFi, especially this next quarterly, is going to tell us so much about what's going on in the inner workings of SoFi right now. Structurally, what is going on in SoFi financially, with new customers, financially, quarterlies, everything. What's going on with them? How do they feel? What is the new outlook for Q3 here? But two, the chart, the looking at a candlestick chart, things could look dramatically different here. People could be wishing that they could buy SoFi at this $20 range here. Maybe, what does 6 months look like from now? And two, my God, what's coming next week? The Feds are meeting up, and they're gonna more than likely do a rate cut. So, I don't think there's anyone that is somewhat intelligent in the market right now going, well, obviously next week's going to be a rough week for the market. I don't think anyone is saying that. I think everyone's going, all of the biggest companies essentially are reporting earnings next week. We've got a rate cut potentially, supposedly happening next week. Plus, they may talk about the next rate cut in December. Things are looking up here. I think we've gone through so many pops in the market just this year alone. You can essentially see them building up at this point. Does that make sense? It's not hard to really spot, like, okay, we're about to go through another market push here. I think they're kind of easy to see at this point, and that is kind of where we're at right now, where it's like, okay, here we go. So SoFi is showing that right now. It's been showing that for the last 2 weeks. This is why I've been yapping my gums. Like, SoFi is looking for any excuse to get back up in this 28 push to $30 range. It is trying to get back there intensely. It's only been a month since the stock was $30. Okay, and from last month to now, essentially from the last rate cut to just to October 3rd when this thing sold down to $25, and that was do you realize that $25 was the worst we got out of SoFi? That was the worst. That should tell you quite a bit right there. There's a hefty wall right now at $25, but the first tier wall is $27.28. The last bottom wall the worst we've seen in the market right now is that $25 in essentially a nickel, a quarter in the market here. So that's the worst we've seen. Okay, I think that, pat yourself on the back. That's a pretty good place for SoFi to be right now. So, yeah, I mean, I'm totally in this mindset that SoFi is about to really shock people with what they're about to show here on Q3. It's going to be very interesting. And if you've been with SoFi, these are very emotional things. Being an investor is very emotional because when you stick with a stock, you go through the emotions of quarterly to quarterly to quarterly, and you're very hopeful that obviously, I mean, there's no guarantees, but obviously, a lot of us have been here watching the partnerships, the deals with SoFi, the growth in the stock, and, listen to the inner workings of the company. We fully expect that they will keep doing well. And still very much in a growth pattern right now. I think that SoFi obviously is going to be a very dominant predator in the banking system here in the next 5 to 10 years. I think that's what we're looking at right now. So with this next quarterly coming out, yeah, it's emotions because it's like when they do well, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is amazing. I believed in this company. I believed in myself to stick with it. And I'm doing well with it. So I think there's going to be a lot of euphoria with SoFi here next week, and that's a very good feeling for a lot of people. And that's something that I love when people do well in the market, man. I love that feeling, from the first time I made $5 in the market from, any other big trades I've had, it's a very special thing to go through in the market. There's a lot of emotions and up and downs in the market. One week you're like, things are going really good, and next week Trump makes a tweet and things are going really bad. So that's just the way of the market here. But friends, I'll be back talking tomorrow about more things. Get back talking about Wolf. Wolf is taking a stock offering, all that kind of stuff, but I'm not really worried about that. Stock offerings really do not concern me all that much. I don't know why people get such in a tizzy about them, but yeah, friends, take care of yourself. I will talk to you soon. I wish everyone the best of luck with what we're about to go into here these next couple weeks, a few weeks essentially in the market. And yeah, bye everyone. Take care.